Cast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone, and good evening. Welcome to our session today. Our session that is on resetting an exam, effective tips to ensure exam success. Now, my name is Tahir Kapasi, and I'm the Regional Education Manager for ACCA in the Middle East. I would like to thank and extend my thanks to Waleed Minhas and PwC's Academy for being our delivery partners on the session this evening. Um, Before we begin, just wanted to give a quick introduction to Waleed. So Waleed is the professional qualification trainer at PwC's Academy, and with over 6 years of industry training and experience, he has trained hundreds and hundreds of students in the subjects of financial management, management accounting, and performance management related subjects. Waleed's approach to training is very much exam focused and has integrated exam and memory techniques into his teaching, his teaching and his learning styles basically. Waleed has successfully been able to, get a lot of people through their exams and is one of the highly reputed tutors we have in the region. So, um, thanks Waleed for coming on to this session and supporting our students with it. I would just like to give a brief introduction to the session and just set the scene for you before I can hand over to you officially. We've all been so most of the students attending, I believe, would have experienced some sort of failure, and I am an ACCA member myself, and I remember back in the days when I used to study, I've not been a one take wonder myself, and I've had some setbacks in life, and I have always been you know believing that it's always a learning experience. Every time you fail an exam or you reset, your knowledge and your experience has definitely enhanced from what it used to be previously. And so the entire purpose of this session, and rather the series of student support webinars that we are hosting in the interest of all our attendees and all our students, is to ensure that you don't sort of give up. There is absolutely no reason for you to sort of start dwelling on any failure. It's okay, perfectly normal to reset exams. I have reset some of my ACCA exams, in the past when I used to study for my ACCA. Most important thing is from failure is to be able to understand what your shortcomings were when you did not have a successful past, and basically ensure that you're preparing yourself and you're developing on those weaknesses and you don't repeat those mistakes that you previously made. So going back, taking a few steps behind, reassessing what your strategy was, whether it worked or not, whether it was whether there were gaps that you needed to fill, bridges that you need to cross, etc., and then really working towards filling in those gaps, etc., and crossing those bridges so that you ensure you are coming out successful in your future attempts. So without talking too much on the topic, I will pass it on to the expert for this evening, who is going to be giving us, or rather sharing with us, his experience and his views on what ideally students should do to ensure that they have a successful exam attempts. So over to you, Waleed.
Thank you very much, Tahir. Hi, everyone. Good evening, and welcome to this webinar on effective tips to ensure exam success. As Tahir was speaking about exams and how he has sat few exams, I would know few examiners who have sat few exams, reset exams. So again, this is not the end of the world, and that's what we are here today, to make you more comfortable on your journey and to make sure that you are fine in terms of understanding the reasons of that failure and then how to convert that into pass. This session will also be useful for those people who are just planning to sit an exam in September or December, let's say. So not only catering to the resets, but also if you can, there's lots of information here which you can use in your preparation going forward into the next exam sittings. So we'll begin on the session, and I am going to
Waleed, if I can just interject for a quick second here, I can already see the popularity of the session, and then with the number of questions coming in, I just wanted to tell the audience that we will have enough time towards the end of the presentation for question and answers. So yes, please do
Yeah.
let your questions flowing. We will be reviewing all your questions, and Waleed and I will attempt to answer as many questions as we possibly can. But there is a dedicated questions tab on your window. Send across your questions. I can see a lot of questions already coming up, so keep it up. But let's get Waleed, presenting.
Yeah, okay, sure. So just a quick quote which I really love. When I was a student, and still when I teach all these students, I always tell them there is no failure but only feedback. So this should be the right mindset that you're going into the exams with. Do not take failure in a very negative way. Take it as an opportunity to improve and develop your skills. And that is what we are going to learn in today's webinar as well. So today's agenda, so I'll just give you a quick introduction about me. I mean, Tahir has already talked about that, but I'll just quickly go over that again. And then introduce you to an approach which I think is really, really useful in your preparation for the upcoming exams, which I call the 3 Ps. And of course, you can see the ones which are underlined below. The 3 Ps are plan, prepare, and pass. So we're going to see how to plan, how to prepare, and how to pass on exam day. And then a lot of time I'm going to allocate at the end for some questions. So feel free to drop in any questions as you have, even during the session. And then at the end, I'm going to take those questions along with Tahir, and hopefully I'll try to answer them as many as we can. So that's about me. And I promise that this gentleman here is me without the beard. So my name is Waleed, and I teach finance and management accounting at PwC's Academy. And I've got my email address there, just in case if you'd like to speak to me post-webinar, and you've got any general questions on your preparation and stuff. I'm very happy to come back to you as soon as I can. So just leaving you my contact details there. Now, the first thing here is to plan. And again, another quote which I really love is that failing to plan is planning to fail. A lot of times you can be in a situation where you just start going into a strategy and then straight away into strategy without even planning anything. That is not the best thing to do. And we're going to spend some time here thinking of how to plan and what's the best plan. And before your preparation starts, how you can make sure that you are well equipped in terms of the entire plan in your mind going forward. So as I said, 3 levels to ensure success. Plan, it has 4 stages for me. The first stage is reflection, that what went wrong, basically. Second stage is the aim and the goal. What is your aim? What is your goal? What do you want to achieve? That's the first thing you need to decide after some reflection. Then what support do you need in terms of your preparation? And then finally, what is your strategy? So I am going to go into all these components in the next slide. So I'll talk about reflection, I'll talk about aim and goal, support, and strategy in more detail, but just giving you a little overview of what we've got here. So that's the first level, which is the plan. The second one is the prepare. Now, prepare incorporates 4 things. The first thing that you see here is the tuition, revision, and question-based revision. So QBR, question-based revision. It may be a new term for some of you, but again, I will talk about it in much more detail on my upcoming slides. Homeworks and progress tests. Vital, and I'll tell you more about them and what's the right number of homeworks and progress tests you need to incorporate in your study plan. Technical articles and some other resources in your preparation. And finally, once we will go through the prepare phase, we'll go into the pass stage. And pass is basically what you are going to do before your exam, during your exam, and after your exam. So this is the 3P plan or strategy, which is plan, prepare, and pass. And now we are going to go into each one of these and talk about them in much more detail. So stage 1, plan. The first thing, as I said, is reflection. And we need to see here that what went wrong in our previous exam attempt. And you need to identify these reasons very, very clearly. A lot of times, students do not know that what went wrong, which means if you don't know what went wrong, then what are you trying to correct? If you do not know your shortfalls, what are you trying to prepare for? You may end up in a situation then where you're basically making the same mistakes or errors again. So the first thing is to understand what went wrong. And there are quite a few things that can go wrong here. The first one is the exam technique. Now, a lot of times we as trainers come across students who have marginally failed at 48 or 49, which is really, really disappointing, which is really disheartening. But again, why is that? What was missing in their preparation? Well, 48, 49 for me means that there was just 1 or 2 marks which were lacking and which they could have scored, but the poor exam technique led them to a failure at 48 or 49. So exam technique can also be a lack of exam technique can also be a situation where you fail to end up in a situation where you can't finish your paper. So some students will come out of exam centers, I only could do 80% of exam. Well, exam technique. Yeah, I could only do some parts of the questions. Exam technique. Yeah, I spent too much time doing one exam technique. Yeah, so all these are little failures in exam technique, which at the end of the day cost you an exam. So you need to identify what is missing. Are you able to time yourself? Are you comfortable with the time? Are you comfortable with the content? Are you able to do numbers in a quick way? Are you able to quickly get ideas onto that piece of paper or your computer screens in terms of a CB exam? So the first thing is sit and think what went wrong. Was it the exam technique? The second thing is dangerous. That's the lack of knowledge. Now, the reason that is dangerous is, well, you need 50% of knowledge on the day to pass. If you know 50% of an exam, you will pass. Okay. And lack of knowledge sometimes shows that candidates are not able to get high marks. I mean, if that's a failure in 40s, it's quite down to the exam technique. But if a failure is in 30s, it basically means that there was a big portion of that paper that you didn't know, or you answered that incorrectly. That's the lack of knowledge. Now, how you're going to get that knowledge, I'm going to tell you in the next phase, which is prepare. But identify these issues. If these have been your issues in the past, you need to identify, was it exam technique? Was it lack of knowledge? Did I know that paper? I mean, question 2 or question 3 or whatever OT question I was doing. Did I know that existed in that syllabus? You need to answer that question yourself. So sit there and think. And if the answer is, well, there was lack of knowledge and I wasn't aware of topics, then I'll tell you in the next stage that how to correct that problem. The third one is inability to apply the knowledge. So again, I've seen a lot of students in my training career, brilliant students, great knowledge, depth, lots of knowledge, but inability to apply the knowledge takes them to a situation where they can't pass an exam. Okay. I can safely say that all ACCA exams now do require you to apply your knowledge. Yeah, they do require you to apply the knowledge. And an example of application of that knowledge is this. So for example, I mean, I teach finance and I teach performance management. So I can take an example of performance management, let's say, and I can say there's a technique called ABC, activity-based costing. Now, you may know everything in the world about ABC and activity-based costing, and you can go on forever talking about the beautiful things ABC can do to our lives. But if you cannot apply the ABC on the scenario given in the exam, then it's pretty much a waste, because for knowing ABC, you will get credit, but there are more marks for applying that knowledge. So the question is, do you know how to apply the knowledge? Is ABC a good technique for the company which is being discussed in the in your scenarios? Yeah. So if the examiner is asking you for some suggestions, will that work on that scenario? I mean, especially in the professional level papers, there are just very few marks available for general for general definitions or explanations. Bulk of the marks are all application. In fact, the advanced performance management examiner says that if you learn the entire material or the course notes, you are only going to secure about 20 to 30% marks. So what are the remaining 70 to 80% marks? Application. So these three, I think, are the most important things that you need to identify if you failed an exam. You need to identify if it was down to your exam technique, was it down to the lack of knowledge, or was it the inability to apply the knowledge? You need to make notes of that. Okay, so that is the first part, reflection, which is very, very important. The second thing is, what is your goal? What do you want to achieve? You need to ask yourself these kind of questions. And I'm sure right now you'll be thinking, some of you may be thinking right now, I've never thought about these things. I've never thought, why did I fail? I never thought, what is my aim or goal going forward? Is your goal to secure a pass, which is 50? Is your goal to secure a good pass, which is like a 60 or a 70? Or is your goal to achieve a very high mark, a prize winner mark, I mean 80s or 90s? Because once you identify your goal, then you can plan accordingly. If your aim is just a 50, then you're going to plan and prepare accordingly. If your aim is 60, 70, you can achieve that. If your aim is 80s or 90s, you can achieve that. Nothing is impossible. Nothing is impossible. And those who may know me will know that I've trained a lot of prize winners over a long time now in this region. And one thing which is really beautiful in this whole journey is that I show them what they want to achieve, and then they work accordingly. So they give me their intention. Well, we want to win a prize. Okay, fine, I'll show you the way. But why was it possible? Because they had the intention, they had the goal, they wanted to win a prize, and then you can prepare them accordingly. So after reflection, the most important thing is, what is your goal? Is your goal a pass? And a lot of us I would be very pleased with a pass. I was that sort of student who would say, well, 50, brilliant. Yeah, or do you want a good pass, or do you want a very high mark? It's up to you, but you need to decide that so that your next steps are according to what you have now decided. Okay, so very important: reflection, aim, and goal. The third one here is support. What kind of support is important in order to get you through this exam now? The first thing for me is an expert tutor, a subject specialist who knows inside out what they are doing, who knows inside out about the syllabus, about the exam, about the examining styles, patterns, etc. You need to get in touch with some expert tutor who can guide you. Yeah, a lot of times students try some papers on their own in terms of self-study mode. It doesn't always work out. It doesn't work out, and that's something which I would never suggest. I would say, get in touch with any expert tutor you know, so that they can guide you. Second thing is the materials. The ACCA approved learning materials are important in your preparation. Okay, so you need to get hold of a set of materials, and your expert tutor can guide you. Perhaps your expert tutor can also give you some additional notes in addition to the materials, but you need some sort of materials to prepare. Okay, so I'll say the first thing is to get in touch with an expert tutor who can then open the door to you in terms of the right kind of materials that you need to prepare to pass. And the third thing is constant feedback and guidance. When you are preparing for an exam, how would you know that where you're going wrong? I mean, if you take a book and you start reading a book, well, I read one chapter every day. Brilliant. But are you being assessed on your knowledge? Are you being tested on that knowledge? Is someone correcting your correcting your errors or mistakes that you're making along that phase? Well, the answer sometimes that is no. And if you don't know that how you're dealing and how you're going on, and are you doing well, are you doing poorly, then again the question is, where are we going? Yeah, it seems a journey which is just on its own. So I would say an expert tutor will open the doors of guidance. He will tell you about the right kind of materials, and then they will need to give you some feedback and guidance throughout that phase. So support is vital in terms of this entire planning. And again, these are some questions which you need to answer. So if I was in your position, I'll sit down this evening or tomorrow and say, well, okay, let's reflect. Then decide a goal. Then decide on what support do we need. Do we need what kind of expert tutors do I have access to? What kind of materials can they open to me? What kind of feedback or guidance they can provide to me? All these questions need to be answered by you in terms of your planning. And the final step here in the planning part is the strategy. To devise a strategy. And the strategy will have two things: an action plan, which is your action plan going into the next exam. Yeah, going into the next exam. So we are right now in June. We've got entire June, we've got July, we've got August. And if you are planning to sit for the September sitting or the December sitting, you need to decide which sitting you're going into and how much time do you have. So you've got close to 100 days perhaps going into the September exam. An action plan, in which month what I am going to do, and then a commitment to follow the plan. Sometimes the plan can just sit there and then you never touch that, and then that means you're just putting pressure. Oh, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it this evening, and then that time never comes. So plan and commitment is vital in ensuring that this plan is implemented. Yeah, and there's lots of time. There's also time to do this planning. So again, if I was in your position, I'm going to take a few days here to plan and answer all these questions which are here. Okay, so that's useful. I hope that's fine, and we are now motivated and encouraged to do some planning. Of course, if you've got any questions around this, after the stage 3, I've covered the stage 3. I'm going to talk about those questions, and I'm going to answer all your questions there as well, along with support from Tahir. Now, moving on to the stage 2. And before we go into the stage 2, I totally love this code. So again, my students would tell you that that's the code they see on the question bank, the first page. The harder you work, the luckier you get. End of. Yeah, tried, tested, implemented, 100% success. Harder you work, the luckier you get. You put the hard work, and then you will become lucky. Yeah, and luck will just follow you throughout your journey. Now, stage 2, prepare. This is where all the hard work needs to come in. And in terms of stage 2, the first thing is tuition, revision, and QBR. QBR is a short form for question-based revision. Now, this is what I call a good structure to prepare. The first thing is you need to take a tuition phase. If you have failed an exam, doesn't mean that you're exempt from the tuition phases. Because if you failed an exam, let's just be honest here. Let's just be honest here. If you failed an exam at 48 or 49, does that mean that you need 1 or 2 marks to pass in the next sitting? No, you need a 50. You need to start from scratch. So the ideal scenario is tuition phase. Get onto a tuition phase with your expert tutor, and that is where you understand the syllabus. That is where you clear your concepts, and that is where you learn how to apply the knowledge on questions. Now, again, I will leave it on to your expert tutor to decide which is the best tuition phase and how much hours would you like to put. But for me, if I tell you my personal preference here on a tuition phase, I would say a tuition phase is good if it has got 30 to 35 hours of expert teaching. And within those 30 to 35 hours, you are doing a lot of question practice. Now, this is where, again, a lot of times people ask me, well, how do you train all these prize winners? How do you get all these pass rates of 80% and 90% and sometimes hitting 100% pass rates? The secret to that success is, and it's no more a secret, the secret is that I will ensure that I will do question practice from the tuition phase. From the very first few hours that the student is on the course, they must be exposed to tuition phase questions. Now, I leave it on to you and your tutors decide that how would you decide which questions to do. But obviously, your expert tutor would know that what is the right amount of questions you're going to do. I preferably do 15 to 20 exam standard questions in the tuition phase, and I'm talking about the professional levels there. On the skills level, it's slightly different, but it does incorporate a lot of question practice. So again, to number the questions, I would do about 100 OT questions. I would do about 10 long questions. That is the number I look at tuition phase. But very important that you get that from day one. Do not wait for the revision phases to do the questions. The questions should start on the first phase. It's difficult. It's very challenging. It's very, very challenging. Yeah, but it's fruitful. It's fruitful. Second phase is the revision phase. Now, this is where you practice the key and relevant questions multiple times in exam conditions with your tutor. Yeah, the question banks are loaded. ACCA has got lots of brilliant resources on their website in terms of past questions, but there's so many. You can't possibly do every question that you see in the world. So the key here is to pick the right kind of questions that you're going to do. Key 20 questions, key 25 questions. And that's what you do on the revision phase, and you do them in exam conditions. If I was to teach AFM, which I teach very proudly, and I have a section A question of 50 marks there, I can spend an entire day on that question. I can spend 6 hours doing that question and beautify that question and do all the beautiful and wonderful things I can do with that question. But how much time does a student get in the exam to do the same question? 1 hour, 30 minutes. So I will not show a student how to do it in 6 hours. I'll show them what they can do in 1 hour, 30 minutes. And that is the kind of practice you need to do on the revision phase. So 15 to 20 key questions, exam timed, not a question a day, exam time questions. The QBR phase, that's the most important element for me. And again, that's what is a differentiator between a pass and a fail sometimes. QBR phase is where you attempt a mock exam, you attempt a model exam or 2 exams before the actual exam. Now ask yourself this question: how many times did you attempt a full mock exam in exam conditions and got feedback on it? And if the answer to that is never, well, a big element of that is missing. So I personally would always like to do 2 exams. I used to do 1 exam before, but now I've done 2 exams before an exam. So on my courses, I would do 2 full exams before the actual exam and provide feedback on that work. And that's like you sat a mini exam before an exam, and really powerful. So you need to devise your preparation into these 3 levels: the tuition phase, the revision phase, and the QBR phase. If you are very, very strong on your knowledge and you're very confident in that, then revision and QBR can also do. But again, as I said, if you have failed at 48 or 49, you need to start from 0. So the ideal stage is that you go into the tuition phase again, revision phase, and then a QBR to basically have a structured approach to your preparation. The next thing is homeworks, the progress tests, and regular feedback. Now, homeworks. How many times have you done a homework? Have you submitted to your tutor and got feedback on it? You need to answer that question. Just ask yourself, Ideally, I would love to see at least 6 to 7 homeworks on my tuition phase. And I would like to give some feedback to my students, tell them where they're going wrong. Because if on the very first day of the course, I set a homework and I don't, if I've set a homework and I see homework and I give feedback on that and I've identified the areas where they need to work, then obviously I'm going to correct that from the very first week. But if I don't set any work and you do not do any work from the very early stages of your preparation and you don't get any feedback, then where are you going? What are you trying to do? Those errors, those mistakes, those conceptual lackings are going to go throughout the journey into the exam with you. So the right stage is homework at the tuition phase. Progress tests. So at some point over this tuition phase and revision phase, 2 to 3 exams, 2 to 3 progress tests are important to gauge your performance. And that's what I say to my students. I say, well, don't worry about failure. I'm happy for you to fail these progress tests. But the key thing is what you learn from these progress tests. And that is the most essential benefit of these progress tests. Okay, so 2 to 3 progress tests throughout the phase, and then get some feedback from your tutors on that. Next thing is technical articles. Technical articles from your ACCA examining teams, and you can find these on ACCA's website for your paper. And you may also, and they may also include some videos. I've seen some articles where the examining team have also released some videos and links for candidates to see how to attempt some questions and be comfortable with them. Question for you: how many times have you gone in and looked out for those technical articles? Are you familiar that your exam has about 10 to 15 technical articles which are available on ACCA's website? Have you read all of them? Or have you read the key bits which have been identified by your expert tutor? These are the topics which are simplified by the examining teams and include some great questions. I've seen some really good examples being given in these technical articles by the examiners. And the newer articles can potentially be examined in the upcoming sittings as well. So keep an eye on the technical articles from the ACCA's websites. Next thing is resources. What other resources do you need to prepare? Newspapers, finance, to see business, what's happening around you. I mean, the papers every day are loaded with a lot of news. When was the last time you went in and read something? Because ACCA's exams require you to have some sort of a knowledge of the business world. And that is how you learn. Financial Times is one of the best resources for finance professionals. The FT, you can subscribe on the website and you can get a mobile version as well of the paper every day in your inbox. There are lots of other finance related websites as well, like Business Insider, Finemize, etc. Lots of different websites, and you choose which suits you. I don't want to recommend anything here. You choose, but there should be some sort of reading that must go on along your journey. It's just not simply reading from the books and sitting in exam and pass. It's about knowing that what's happening around us. So if these days a lot of businesses are struggling, then what are the kind of numbers which are coming out in the market? What's happening to share prices? How are different governments or countries trying to raise money these days by the form of debt and other stuff? So keep yourself well aware of these other resources as well, and through the papers. So 4 things: tuition revision QBR, homeworks progress tests, technical articles, and other resources. This is your prepare. This is where all the hard work needs to go. And this is where you need to ensure that you are comfortable in terms of, and committed as well, in terms of putting in all this effort into your studies to ensure that you convert a fail into a pass, or even just to sit the papers for the first time. Stage 3. And before stage 3, you're really, really close to the victory. And you cannot now give up. And it's almost victory time. And this is how that journey would look like. Pre-exam consideration. What are important pre-exam considerations? We're going to see that. What you are going to do during an exam, and then what you are going to do post-exam. So there should be a post in that slide. What are important post-exam considerations? Yeah. So 3 important things there. So let's start with the first one, which is pre-exam considerations. Wow. Did we think about these before? Yeah. Did you think about these last time you sat a paper? What about your diet? Yeah. Do you eat healthy? Do you eat well? And do you exercise before your exams, or you load yourself with chocolates and caffeine? Yeah. Memories is an important aspect here. If you eat well and you regularly exercise, it affects positively on your memory. You are able to recall things in a better way. Okay. You may have never thought about this. Yeah, never thought about this. What about eating has to do with passing an exam? Well, a big portion. What does exercise have to do with passing an exam? Well, massively important. Rest the night before the exam. And what I always say to students is, if you were not able to do something in like 2 to 3 months, then why are you bothering yourself with all those things one night before the exam? A tired mind is not going to perform well on the day. Take rest. Keep away your study materials at like 9 or 10 at night, and that's it. And the next morning you go for the exam. On my courses, I stopped taking questions at 9 o'clock. So all the questions have come on the night before 9 o'clock, and then I'll keep an eye. Well, who's now resting well. I'll make sure that they are relaxed. You can listen to some music. You can keep yourself away from all this. Yeah, if your mind is refreshed, you're more likely to perform really well on the day. Identify where the exam hall is and plan your journey in advance. You need to make that effort. You don't want to be in a position where you are just running on the day of the exam and trying to find that place, and that's not the best thing. Ensure you have all the equipment, exam dockets, and these could be online. Pens, if you're doing a paper-based exam. If you're doing a CB exam, then obviously you still need a pen for your workings on a piece of paper if you wish to do anything. 2 calculators. Now, if on the day a calculator fails, and that was the only calculator you had, what's going to happen? Just think of that. Yeah, I would always carry 2. I won't risk 1, and a ruler for paper-based exams. Yeah. Presentation, and I'll tell you why is that important. A ruler. Avoid pre-exam discussions. Move away from the pre-exam discussions. Don't stand outside the exam centers or with your friends and then asking questions. There's no point in all that. You're going into the exam. Avoid all that distraction. Focus for the exam. And go to your desk, go to your working station, and then focus 10 to 15 minutes before the exam. Now, again, I'm challenging you here. Look at these things, and then you answer these things to yourself. How many times have you ensured that all these are done well? Did you ensure that these were done well last time? Or was there something lacking here? Second thing, the key phase during an exam. What is important during an exam? Well, during an exam, you have to plan your time. Generally, we go in with a factor of 1.8 minutes per mark. Generally, 1.8 minutes per mark. Let me ask you this question now. Have you ever challenged yourself at 1.6 minutes per mark? Have you ever challenged yourself at 1.5 minutes per mark? Have you tried to make things difficult for you? So a lot of time when students come and say, well, oh, we could not finish the exam. Well, my next question is, well, did you challenge yourself at a factor of less than 1.8? Which means you really need to think, oh, I have 1.6 minutes per mark. You'll hurry up. That 1.8 sometimes gets converted to 2 or 2.1 or 2.2, and that's where you start to overrun on time. Second thing, during the exam, did you ever go back and check how much time is left and how much marks do I need to attempt more? Did you check how much time is left? For example, 45 minutes are left. How much marks I need to attempt? 30 marks more. Did you work out that ratio anytime? And the answer could be no on a lot of equations. If you do this, brilliant. Keep it up. Challenge yourself at 1.5, at 1.6. Keep a check of that time. Look at that ratio very frequently. Understand the verbs and requirement. The verbs. What does it mean when the examiner says explain, analyze, evaluate? What is the meaning of all these verbs? Yeah. If you do not know what does that mean, then what are you trying to answer? If you do not know what does evaluate means, what are we trying to do? Yeah, something to think. Yeah, understand the verbs and then the requirement. Switch off the autopilot mode in the exam and just think what I'm being asked. A lot of times we are on an autopilot mode in the exam. We read the requirement for the sake of reading the requirement. And then we get examiners' comments after the exam that students were trying to answer questions that they wanted to answer and not what was being asked. Why is that? Because you are in an autopilot mode in the exam. I would suggest take time. Take time on reading the requirement, understanding first what's going on here, and then step into the next phase. Presentation is vital. No one likes to mark or see poorly structured answers. Examining teams want neat, tidy, non-crowded answers. If you present neat, tidy, non-crowded answers, you make their work a lot more easier. But if your answers are all messed up and there is no concept of a ruler, there's no concept of a way to structure workings, you're going to make it really difficult for them to pick what's going on. Yeah, and you're going to make it difficult for yourself as well in the exam, because sometimes you may have done an exam and after some time you would have gone back and tried to read from something from page number 2 of your answer booklet and you don't understand what you've written or you don't understand how you come up with those things. Why is that? Because the presentation is very poor. Presentation is vital for the answers in the exam. Apply the knowledge onto the scenarios. Why the scenarios were created? Because you had to bring on that knowledge and apply those to the scenarios, not just tell the examining teams that, oh, this is what NPV is all about. These are all the beautiful things NP will do in life. Well, that's not the question. The question is apply back to the scenario. Will this be useful for this business or no? Gain easy marks first. In all the papers, there are some easy marks and your expert tutors can identify those easy marks. And I'll just give you an example of something like an AFM. Easy marks, if you ask me. Well, professional marks, easy. There are 4 to 5 marks for stating assumptions or discussing assumptions. Tax working, NPV, comment. These are about 10 to 11 marks here, which are not difficult. So have you ever done an exam and been in a situation where you actually are able to count those easy marks? That's what I will train my students on. Count the easy marks and then remain calm and follow exam technique that your tutor has inbuilt into you. A lot of times you're going to blank out in an exam. It seems that nothing is coming to the mind. It's a complete blank. But then gather your thoughts. Remain calm. Don't look elsewhere. Look at your paper. Why you spent all this time preparing? Yeah, you spent a lot of time. Would you like to resit? No one likes to resit. So let's give the best try in that one hour or so which is left in the exam, at the point where you went blank in the exam. So calmness on the day. If you press those panic buttons in the exam, pretty much game over. Yeah, pretty much game over. Okay, so remain calm. And then last thing, post-exam considerations. Well, relax and avoid discussions, because you cannot change anything now. So what's the point of worrying yourself? Yeah, so again, a lot of times, yes, initial feedback is important. That is something which you need to provide to the teenagers. But after 2 weeks, you may remember something. Oh, what I did in that OT question, let me go. Can't change that. Just relax. Don't overanalyze at that point, and treat yourself at the end on the exam day after coming out of that exam center, because you have earned it. You've put in a lot of effort into that exam. So don't overanalyze, relax, and then treat yourself at the end. Do provide some feedback to your tutor, which is important, but don't overanalyze. Okay, so 3 phases: pre, during the exam, and then post-exam. Just a quick ask from me. I'm almost done with my presentation now, and we will have a Q&A session shortly. If I can just ask you to please just scan this code just to share your feedback on this session, and then after this we're going to go into a Q&A session. So I would just like to give you a minute or so, just a quick feedback, just so that we know that what was useful for you.
Thanks, Wali. Then I would really like to take this opportunity to dive in and ask the attendees to definitely sign up and fill up this feedback, because it's quite crucial for us to know. The more you tell us, the better we will be able to sort of support you and serve you in bringing new topics. Are there any other topics? How did you find the session today? Would you like us to be sort of presenting and talking to you on different topics, on different things? This is really your opportunity to sort of raise your voice and give us the feedback. Tell us how we are doing. Tell us if you want us to do something differently, something more, less of something, everything. This is really the opportunity. So I would really encourage everybody to either scan this QR code and give us feedback, or write into us and give us feedback. But feedback is really important as it is for you when you're preparing your exam. Right. So, Walid, I'm just going to start looking into the questions here, and I can already see we've got a good number of questions that have sort of come in. So if you're comfortable, we can leave this page on for the attendees to scan and fill up the. But let's, in the interest of time, let's start cracking with the questions, because I can see there's quite a few questions that we might have to tackle. So the first question we have is, could you give us a study schedule for the September exams with 2 subjects? So I think, Johi, I think a huge question, and I think we can actually do a full session on this. But Waleed, do you have something, some advice to students that are perhaps maybe thinking of taking 2 exams for September, and really quick points on what they should be considering?
Well, I think regular work is required. This is a very open question. I mean, there are so much different combinations that can be created. And again, as I said, your expert tutor should be able to help you with some planning going into the next few months. So if you have access to a tutor, reach out to them. They should be able to give you some plans. But if you ask me generally, I would say, well, we'll split the week into 2 parts. But give a balanced attempt at both the papers. Sometimes we think, well, we're fine with this paper and we will spend more time on that. No, give it a balanced attempt, but regular work. So 3 to 4 days, maybe a week, 2 days split into 1 subject, and then you should just plan accordingly.
And then just to add on what Waleed has said, really valid points. I think planning is really the key, and something that Waleed hugely explored within the session today, this evening. I think everything relies on the way you plan towards it. I mean, we can give you guidance, but we can't exactly tell you unless we have a one-on-one consultation session, with you, where we can really understand what sort of time commitment you have. Are you working, not working, full time, part time? Can you commit? How much time in a day can you really commit towards studying for your exams? But it's really up to you. But something that I can sort of guide you towards is also the ACCA sort of study planner, and it's a resource which we showcased on one of the sessions previously on the student support session. It is also available on the ACCA website under ACCA students. So that is a planner basically that will help you, plan out your study up until the exam day. It's a good resource, and I think if you don't have a plan, you can tend to sort of sway away. So having a structure, giving something, a structure is quite important. So most important thing for you, I would suggest, is do planning. When you've planned, you'll help yourself a lot better. Some of the tips Waleed has already covered in his session, where you considerations that you need to put in beyond planning. But yes, start off with planning and start off with using the template that we provided. Moving on, there's another question. Is it a good idea to take audit and assurance exam with strategic business reporting, and particularly if we are resitting the audit exam? Waleed, do you have any views on this one?
Um, I think nothing stops really. I think what you can see here is that the SBR exam has got quite a heavy focus. I mean, a balanced sort of a focus on numbers and discursive, but more than the audit paper. And audit and assurance obviously is all discursive. So it could go into a decent combination. Again, nothing stops really. If you're fine with these, I think you can go ahead with that.
Yeah, I think, and there is a bit of an overlap on the two subjects. So, audit and
Yeah.
assurance and strategic business reporting kind of go hand in hand, because on your and more so when you reach up to the strategic professional level, your SBR and your AAA, advanced audit and assurance, are
Hmm.
actually two exams which really complement one another. But having that kind of
Hmm.
knowledge around auditing will really help you answer your questions in a much more better way with strategic business reporting. Because if you look at the main differences from the old exam, which was the corporate reporting, the old P2, and the strategic business reporting exam, there's a lot more discussionary elements involved. And if you understand your auditing, your requirements, there's a lot more that you can bring into a different angle on your SBR answer. So yes, definitely, I think we think it's a good combination. If you're resitting your audit and assurance, definitely go ahead with it, because you've had enough time. June exams were cancelled, so you make sure you use this additional time basically to really firm up your concept on your audit and assurance, and then really prepare yourself better for your SBR exams. uh there is another interesting question: how do we stop failing at 49? um Although I can see the candidate has left the session, but Walid, I think in the interest of everybody else attending, it's a good question to address.
Yeah, I mean, 49 is obviously, I mean, it's disappointing and demotivating, but there's a reason you could have got a 49. Um, the examining teams are obviously flexible in a way that they mark the papers. They want you to pass. Nobody wants you to fail. So if you fail at 49, there's a reason for that. But it's marginal, which means for me it could mean two things. It could mean either an exam technique issue, or it could mean that you're making some sort of fundamental error which you need to correct in your preparations going forward. So you're nearly there. You have the right kind of base, but it's down to the exam technique more of a conclusive answer to that if you are a marginal fail. So it could be that you've spent more time on a requirement, you've written less for another requirement, you've not been able to finish the exam, not been able to get professional marks, and then that at the end cost you that exam.
Right. Thanks, Walid. Moving on, I think the next question is in two parts, and I think one of the first parts we've already covered within the first question, which was around how does one prepare for multiple papers in one sitting. There is also the second part of the question which says, especially since somebody has failed a certain subject more than once, how do they ensure that they don't feel very nervous on the exam day? So before I pass this on to you, Walid, I would like to just say that we will definitely be having another session that will come up on that will specifically address this question around how do you tackle your exam nerves on the exam day. But Walid, do you want to sort of quickly just add in a point or two on this?
Yeah, I mean, just quickly. Again, it's kind of motivation that you need to keep yourself motivated throughout that exam, and you can be much more confident on your abilities if you have prepared well. So again, if the first two phases were done well, the planning and preparation was there. If it is done well, it's quite common that you won't have that situation where you feel those exams because you're well prepared. The only reason that you may have that sort of an anxiety or nerves on the day is if the preparation was lacking, a topic came up. If that situation does arise, well, not the end of the world. What happens sometimes is we focus too much on a little requirement that is few marks, and we distract ourselves from the other 95 or 96 marks in the exam, which could have been easier for us. And then our entire focus is on those few marks. So I would say stay away from the distractions, and again, just hold for a few minutes. Stop for a few minutes. Calm yourself down. Plan again, and then go on again into that exam.
Thanks, Walid. I mean, yeah, quite important, really, understanding, where the roadblocks are and how do you overcome that. And I think one of the suggestions I can actually give to students, usually I give to students when they come to me asking, well, I feel quite nervous about an exam, and what do I really do about it? And I think one of the fundamental things that I really recommend to students around, overcoming exam nervousness is doing more of them. And when I say doing more of them, I don't mean doing more exams, but I mean doing mock exams, and doing them under exam conditions. So when you really do your mock exams, whether it is with your learning partners, whether it is doing yourself, you've got to discipline yourself. You've got to make sure that you're doing it under exam conditions. So you're timing yourself, you're making sure that you've got no support material around you to help you with answering your questions. You get that mock exams marked, and you receive feedback, and then you start working on that feedback. It's quite important that and generally nervousness and fear is associated with the fear of unknown. We tend to get nervous when we don't know what the outcome of a certain situation is going to be. But if you've practiced enough mock exams, and your mock exams are really a reflection of your actual exam and the reflection of your performance that will be during an actual exam. So I think I can't emphasize enough on the importance of really doing your mock exams before you do your actual exams, because they really help building that confidence, and they really help with tackling the exam nervousness and all of that. On the day of the exam, you feel a lot more comprehensive, you feel a lot more prepared when you go in to write those actual exams. uh Next question, I think, is again around time management, Wali. Then, and there's a student that's concerned around what should we do if we realize that we've wasted a lot of time, and we've not got enough time to complete the rest of the exam. What should the ideal strategy be in that case?
What I would suggest in that case is that you're in that position where the time is not enough there and you've got lots to do. I would say you need to, first of all, back your strength areas. You need to identify what are your strength areas in the portion which is left in the exam and give a good try at that. And look out for the easier marks available. There's no point in trying and do everything. So if you got less time and you've got more to do and you think it's totally unmanageable now, the best thing is stick with what you've got. A lot of times candidates will try to do everything in those 30 minutes, which is realistically not possible. So I would say identify your key areas, identify your strength areas, identify the key marks, easy marks, and try to do them. sometimes the discursive requirements are much more easier and quicker to do when the time is short rather than going into a lot of numbers. So that's what I would suggest.
Brilliant. Thanks, Farid. And the only thing I would possibly add is, again, depending on what exam you are doing, getting the exam strategy and the order of your exam is quite important. So if you were doing the likes of session CBA exams, then perhaps maybe, and if by experience you know that you have an issue with time management, then in such circumstances, my recommendation generally will be doing the long form answers first and leaving the objective test questions towards the end. Because then if you're running short of time, and if you've got objective test questions, some of those are quite simpler, drag and drop, or multiple choices. You still can read, understand the concept, and quickly go through your answers. But this is not something which is set in stone. This is my observation, and this is what I think might work well for student. Everybody is different. Everyone has got a different strategy, but we can only just guide you on these sessions. Now, a lot of questions, Walid, are coming in around technical elements about F9 or financial management, as we say now, or audit and assurance. In the interest of all the students who have been raising these technical questions, rest assured we will be covering a lot of these elements on some of our upcoming student support sessions. We will be discussing, exam specific techniques on how can you reset your audit and assurance exam better, or what are the effective ways you can ensure you pass your financial management. We will be having sessions where we will be covering some key topics, key information, as well as examiners' reports, etc. So I'm going to just wave away some of those questions for now, because we will definitely be covering them in the upcoming sessions. Uh, Yep, a lot of them are around. I've failed my exams a number of times. I think one of the last ones, and again, in the interest of time, I think what we could say is, how many hours a day would you recommend a student should study in a day? What is the recommended hours of study time?
Again, it's different for different papers, really, and again, it depends on the mode of your study as well. I mean, what do you prefer? At what stage are you studying? If I put my student's hat on, um, I would say about 2 to 3 hours of studying a day on regular pace is enough, as a student. But then again, it depends on different papers. Some papers require you to practice a lot of questions, which is in terms of numbers. Obviously, they take a lot of time in doing question practice. Some discursive papers, there are answers like, let's say, like APM, where you can quickly read and get through it. So I think it depends. But I would say, whatever you do, you decide the best hours where it's not tiring for you, but keep it regular. It shouldn't be a case where you are studying for like 12 hours a day and then after that 8 days of no studying. That's very dangerous.
Yeah, thanks, Fareed. And I think quite valid points. And just to add to what you've said, these are quite subjective things, and it sort of
Hmm.
varies from individual to individual. Some people I know in my journey, or when I used to study, used to be people who used to study for 5 hours, 6 hours a day regularly.
Hmm.
On the contrary, there were some of those last minute crunchers who would maybe pick up their books 6 weeks or 7 weeks ahead of an exam, and then really put in 10 hours, 11 hours of a day studying constantly every day, etc. So it really depends on what is your learning style, and how you would incorporate. The general recommendation is that you allocate required studied hours on a day-to-day basis. So it's not like you've picked up something and then you, like Walid said, 8 days again you don't do anything, and then you again read, because that doesn't help your memory and your retention. Keeping in touch with your education, with your studies regularly on a daily basis for a number of hours is ideally recommended. Picking up the best productive hours of the day towards studying is also another recommendation. So you make sure that we all have our productive hours of the day. Some people are early risers, some people are most productive in the morning, as opposed to some people are quite less productive in the morning and more productive towards the afternoon or the evening or even late night. So really being able to identify what your productive hours of the day are, and then make sure that you allocate a huge chunk of those productive hours towards studying as well, again depending on what sort of responsibilities you have, or how you are able to split your work life balance or your study life balance, etc. But yeah, these are some of the general recommendations. With that, I think I'll bring the session to a wrap. I'm quite conscious that we've gone over 7 minutes, and it's good in a way to see the amount of engagement coming in. So thank you everyone for attending the session. Most importantly, thank you Walid again for sharing your valuable insights. I'm sure our students have benefited a lot by listening to you, signing up for the session, and giving us all the feedback. So thank you, PwC's Academy. Thank you, Walid, and thank you to all the attendees. Keep tuned in, keep signed up. We are going to be bringing in a lot more sessions to support you and help you and guide you. So stay updated, follow us on our social channels, and we will keep you all posted. Thank you, everyone. Good evening. Take care.
Thank you.